Hey everyone, welcome to 2023. We are back once again, and today I want to just take a moment and talk about my most anticipated films of the year. I haven't done this video before, but I want to make this a yearly tradition, I hope, and just talk about the films that I'm most excited for that are on my radar so far. And of course, if you have any that are on your radar that maybe I didn't mention or don't know about, drop them in the comments below, because some of the stuff I think, like, usually the best movies of the year, I don't even know about until like midway through the year. But yeah, so to kick off this list, I just want to give one honorable mention, and that is actually the Super Mario Brothers movie. What? I know, right? You would expect, but this is what we call a red herring. Look, I am excited for this movie, obviously. I'm a huge Mario fan, but a couple things I have to throw out there. Illumination, and the fact that it's a me, Mario. I mean, look, I think Chris Pratt's going to do a fine job acting-wise, but he's not really playing a Mario with the accent. They should have gotten Jared Leto, for crying out loud. And I'm not sure how the humor is going to play out. As I said with Illumination before, we've seen the Despicable movies, we see how that turned out. So I'm still a little bit concerned, but I think from what I've seen, you can tell how much care went into the property. They really are building this world like it would be a Nintendo game. And Jack Black seems like he was perfectly cast as Bowser, born to play that character, unlike another actor in the movie. And yeah, so that's just kind of a wait and see thing. I wanted to mention it real quick. But yeah, let's get right into the top 10. And coming in at number 10 on my list was a film I just heard about, so I definitely knew that I had to throw it on there, and that is Poor Things, the upcoming film by none other than auteur filmmaker Yorgos Lanthimos, once again re-teaming with Emma Stone, but this time we're throwing Willem Dafoe in the mix. Mark Ruffalo, Margaret Qualley's going to be there, Catherine Hunter, who was amazing in The Tragedy of Macbeth in 2021, and I believe it's Rami Youssef. I know he's on that show on Hulu that he got a lot of acclaim for. So this really, I mean, it's basically the stories about this pregnant woman who drowns herself to save herself from her abusive husband. It's adapted from a book. I think it's a 1992 novel. And basically, they save her, and then they basically put her child's brain into her head because her husband's a doctor. I don't know, this sounds crazy. And knowing what Yorgos Lanthimos has done with films like The Lobster, which I loved, one of my favorite movies from that year, even though I'd probably bring it down a peg nowadays, and of course, The Favorite, which I really enjoyed, and Dogtooth. I mean, come on, that movie's absolutely nuts. And if this movie's kind of more in the vein of Dogtooth, I think we're in for something. I really think that this could be his craziest film yet. Absolutely intrigued every time this guy makes a movie, so I had to put that on my list. And believe it or not, at number 9, I have Barbie, which is crazy, but hear me out. Greta Gerwig, and of course, writing this film with her partner, Noah Baumbach. The fact that they are making a Barbie movie, or that they made a Barbie movie, was really the reason why I was so interested in the first place. And of course, Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, I mean, come on, perfect Barbie and Ken if you ever asked for one. Sorry, Michael Keaton. But the thing is, what's so interesting about this, I mean, we saw the teaser trailer, and just, it's such a great parody of 2001: A Space Odyssey they were doing there. And I think that shows that this film's going to be very meta, very self-referential. I feel like this really could be like the Lego Movie, like a live-action version of the Lego Movie, taking a property that's known for being associated with children's toys and really turning it into something for adults, something that has wit, something that has intelligence, something that has humor. I feel like this is what this movie is going to be, and I think so interesting that she's following up Little Woman, of all things, with a Barbie movie. I don't know, but I'm beyond excited for it, and I can't wait to see what these guys pull out this time around. And coming in at number 8, we have Dune Part 2, once again directed by Denis Villeneuve. Really enjoyed the first movie, especially from a technical aspect. That film was, like, amazing. But I really feel like it's a Lord of the Rings situation. Because, I'll be honest, I don't quite love Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring. But I love the films that followed it because I think that they really built on that film, and I think that there's a lot that could have been less convenient in that first movie. I feel the same way, at least similarly so, about this, where I feel like the characters weren't fleshed out enough in this first movie for me to really appreciate it this go-around. But I feel like this is the part of the story that's really going to come full force and hit with that emotion, hit with the enthralling action. From what I understand, there's going to be a lot of big set pieces, maybe even more so than the first film. I mean, talk about who's bringing into the fray. Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Léa Seydoux. I mean, Christopher Walken, for crying out loud. This really is going to be, I think, a sequel that's going to be bigger and better than the first. Like sequels like Terminator 2. I really do feel like this could be one of the best movies of the year, and we know that he's going to deliver on the technicals. We shouldn't even be worried about that in the slightest. It's Denis Villeneuve. He's a master at his craft, and I think that this is going to be maybe one of his best films. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And at number 7, I have Beau is Afraid, the follow-up to Ari Aster's Midsommar from 2019. It's been that long since we've heard from Ari Aster. And this one is a surrealist horror comedy, it's been described as, which is interesting, him taking a stab at comedy, but obviously staying entrenched in the horror genre. This time starring Joaquin Phoenix. Okay, that really gets me intrigued. Those two getting together and making this pairing for this film. But you also got Amy Ryan in the mix, Patti LuPone, of all people. I mean, Nathan Lane is in this. I mean, this really is such an interesting cast. And I'm wondering what his approach to comedy is going to be. Because we've seen him done humor and it's worked well. But I really wonder what this kind of genre hybrid is going to be like from Ari Aster. Even though I don't know if he said he wants to do more than horror, I feel like while staying true to his roots and what he's done so far, I think that this is going to be a step forward for him as a filmmaker and kind of like expand his review a little bit. So I'm really interested to see what he does. And of course, I mean, I loved Hereditary. I loved Midsommar. I mean, Hereditary was one of my favorite movies from that year. It made my top 10. So this could be yet again another case, and I think it spans a few decades too. So big, ambitious project from Ari Aster, and I can't wait to see it. And at number 6, I have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Obviously a sequel to the massively successful and critical success Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that came out all the way back in 2018 now. And like everyone else, I love that movie. But honestly, I didn't love it as much as everyone else. I don't think the story came together for me as well, or has hit me hard emotionally as it did other people. I thought that there could have delved a little bit more into some character moments between the characters. If you read the actual comic where Miles Morales came from, read the scene between him and his father, and you'll know exactly why I probably feel that way, because that was something I was hoping was in the movie. But I think that this, yet again, is another instance where they're going bigger and maybe even stronger. I will say, I haven't seen the newest trailer for this because I've been kind of staying away from it, but I hear there's going to be a lot more spider people, so I don't know how that's going to pan out. Maybe they're going to be a bit more indulgent in that sense. I hope not, but I hear that it is more focused on Miles and his mother this time around. And so I think that's going to be really interesting, seeing that dynamic a bit more, because I really did love her when she's kind of placed in the first movie, but we didn't really get to know a whole lot about her. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to explore that dynamic, and really to see, is this going to be, is this going to turn into a trilogy? Is this going to be like the Empire Strikes Back of the Spider-Verse series? We'll see, but I can't wait to see it. And I obviously it got delayed, so I think it was supposed to come out last year, but you know, we didn't see it, so it's going to be worth the wait, I think, at the end of the day. And at number 5, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I mean, look, James Gunn, everything that he had been through at Marvel, the firing over his controversial tweets, and then everybody in the cast taking his back and saying they weren't going to do the movie. And so really there was so much controversy surrounding this film that you couldn't help but be intrigued when they actually brought James Gunn back and let him make the movie that he wanted. And yet again, I will say the second one, really liked it. It had some of the most emotional highs in the entire MCU, but I feel like the story structure was a bit inconsistent, especially compared to how great the first one is. It just doesn't quite touch it. And we've seen James Gunn kind of step over the line with his humor sometimes. Not in regards to the tweets, obviously that's a whole other story, but I mean just in his films themselves, that might be a little bit much. I mean, you could argue about the dumbing down of Drax. I mean, that's a whole other thing we could get into, but I really feel like there's going to be so much in this movie still. I mean, you're introducing Adam Warlock. I mean, Will Poulter's playing him. Of course, you know, I think we're going to delve a lot more into Rocket's backstory. And of course, obviously the passing of Gamora in Avengers Infinity War, and her coming back in Endgame as an alternate timeline. You know how that stuff works. I really feel like this is going to be maybe the emotional highlight of the entire Guardians of the Galaxy series. But I'm still a little concerned about, you know, them doing too much of the humor, because obviously it worked well in the Suicide Squad, and I'm really glad James Gunn is over at DC now fixing up things and going to create his own universe. I think that's going to be great. But I still feel like I'm a little bit worried that they're going to push it a little bit with the humor, and it's going to fall a little flat. But regardless, I mean, just for everything this man had been through to get to this point, to get this movie made, I can't wait to see how he closes out this series with these characters. And of course, you bet that I'm going to be there day one to see it. And at number 4, we have Oppenheimer by Christopher Nolan. And let me just say, the craziest cast of the entire year. I mean, I'm not even going to get into it. But basically, it stars Cillian Murphy as J. Robert Oppenheimer and Emily Blunt as his wife. I don't know how much is known about this film yet. I think he might have even released a trailer. This shows you how behind I am on this stuff. But obviously, we've heard a lot of the news surrounding it. Basically, recreating the nuclear bomb practically. No, they're not actually recreating the bomb. I had to look into that myself. The wording was very confusing in some of the articles. But I really do think that this could be return to form for Christopher Nolan after Tenet, which, let's be honest, was just an absolute mess. Unintelligible nonsense. I mean, maybe he had a point. I mean, Christopher Nolan is a brilliant filmmaker, but I don't think that film really worked from an intellectual standpoint. And I feel like, regardless of how you feel about Tenet or any of his films, when Christopher Nolan makes a movie, it is an event more than anything, which is probably why I have this film so high on the list. And of course, the fact that Christopher Nolan is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, whether it be The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Inception, Memento. I mean, so many great films in his catalog, and I think that this might end up being one of his best. We'll see. I think there's definitely a story worth being told, especially a historical one, of a man who created a weapon so disastrous that he kind of had to accept the fact and carry the burden that he was the man to cause these explosions in these cities and carry the massive weight of that. And I think that kind of emotional trauma is something really interesting that they could explore in this movie. On top of the fact that you know you're going to get some good action, it's going to be tense, especially with the whole political thriller angle on it that I'm at least expecting from this movie. And yeah, I can't wait to see it. I mean, obviously, yet again, another movie you're probably going to want to see it in IMAX, and you're probably going to want to see it opening weekend at the very least. And cracking the top 3, we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I would have done the theme vocally, but I'd probably get a copyright strike for that. Regardless, this film is going to be absolutely nuts. Christopher McQuarrie coming back once again with Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. And apparently he's jumping off a cliff this time. So I think that this really is going to be If we're looking at the track record of the previous films, they keep going bigger and better. I mean, Mission Impossible Fallout's like the 6th entry in that series, and it's by far the best one. So I'm hoping this is on the same level, or maybe even greater than Fallout. That's going to be kind of hard to top, but you know, considering their success rate here, I definitely think that this is going to be another win for them. And obviously, a one-parter, they're gearing up the second part to be something truly special, it seems like, because I don't know why this series would go 2 parts or any of their entries. They all feel like pretty standalone ventures that kind of tie into like a loose narrative, if you will. But I'm really, really excited to see just how crazy this movie is from a stunt perspective, just how tight the action and the editing is. I mean, and look, if Tom Cruise is going to put himself out there and almost kill himself every single time, I'm going to watch it. You know what I mean? This man is the hardest working man in show business if we're talking about the movie industry. The last true movie star. If Top Gun Maverick proved anything, that is 100% a statement that is still intact. And very, very excited to see this film. I mean, Mission Impossible Fallout was one of my favorite films of 2018, and I have a good feeling that this is going to be one of my favorite films of 2023. At number 2 on this list, we have none other than Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese. And of course, getting the re-teaming, which this hasn't happened since like the 90s, I'm pretty sure. But the 2 of Scorsese's absolute favorite and best collaborators, Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. On top of that, you have Jesse Plemons, Brendan Fraser, who I'm sure will be coming off an Oscar win at this point, John Lithgow. I mean, this cast is crazy, and I absolutely love the idea where it's about the, I think it's like the mining on the Osage land. And really, this film was supposed to come out last year. It's going to be distributed by Apple TV. It's going to hit the streaming services once again, like what happened with The Irishman, but on Netflix. And I think that this, I mean, this is the thing about Scorsese. I feel like compared to a lot of his contemporaries, he is the one who has been the most consistent through all these years. You see him making consistently great films. I mean, Wolf of Wall Street, for crying out loud, one of his absolute best. And I think, you know, if The Irishman proves anything, it proves that Scorsese still got it. He's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, maybe the greatest filmmaker alive, and I think that this could be another great late career masterpiece for him. I don't know, we'll have to see, but I think it certainly has the potential to be just that. And at this point, you might have figured out what my most anticipated film of 2023 is. And look, I mean, when I first heard that they were making this movie, I was very skeptical. And I'm still a little skeptical in some regard, but I would be lying to you if I said I was not beyond excited for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the last outing in the Indiana Jones franchise, spearheaded by Harrison Ford as the titular explorer. Just such an iconic role for him, maybe his best, that or Han Solo, but I think even Harrison Ford says that this is his favorite. And just because Crystal Skull was not good, I really think that this is a chance for them to really end the series off on a high note. Granted, I am a bit concerned, because if you've seen the trailer, you see some of the visuals. Was one of my big problems with Crystal Skull, besides some story stuff. But I'm a little worried to see how that pans out. But, I mean, look at this cast. You have Mads Mikkelsen as the villain. I mean, come on. You can't do better than that. Antonio Banderas is one of his allies. Obviously, bringing in Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's really going to, I think, bring a lot to this movie. And John Williams, I hope that John Williams will get one final Oscar nomination for original score, unless he does a Bond movie and gets the chance to do so. But I really think that even though Spielberg isn't at the helm for this one, we have James Mangold. I mean, look at this man's track record. Logan is one of the best comic book movies of all time. I mean, it's one of those films that transcends its own genre. And of course, he's been doing some solid work with Ford v Ferrari. I still have to see 310 to Yuma, but I hear that's very good as well. And I think he's just one of the most consistent action directors in the past 10 years. And I think he continues to build this track record for himself to the point that he would have gotten a film like this, and that Lucasfilm would have approached him to direct this movie when Spielberg stepped down. I think that this movie is going to recapture the spirit of the first three Indiana Jones films that I felt was sort of lacking from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And obviously we have John Rhys-Davies coming back as Sallah. It's so crazy because I said they better put Sallah in this movie, not even realizing they were going to do it and that he already shot his scenes. And I was like, that is so amazing. One of Indy's best allies and one of the best characters. Probably the character who's been in the most movies besides Indiana Jones himself. Taking place in the 60s, yeah, we're dealing with the Nazis again. But I think, considering that they're now a relic of the old past, and so is Indy, I really think that's going to be an interesting dynamic playing out throughout this entire film. It looks great from the trailer, besides the few things I mentioned, but there's like certain shots where, like, I don't know if it's Harrison Ford doing the stunts, because I know he's like old now, he's like 80 years old, but he's just like jumping from one car to the next, and I'm like, okay, if this is the kind of action we're in for, then count me in. I really sincerely hope that this is going to capture the spirit of the Indiana Jones films that I love and that I grew up with, and I think a great capper to Harrison Ford's long-running tenure as this character. I mean, one of the most iconic heroes in cinematic history. This better go out with a bang. I'm not 100% sold yet, but if this is as good as I hope it is, then I think it is well worth being my most anticipated movie of 2023. So guys, let me know, what movies are you most excited for? As I said, let me know what ones I may have missed or may not be on my radar yet, and I will tell you what I think about them and if I've heard of them. So yeah, guys, if you like what you're seeing here, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Go to get a lot more great content like this very, very soon. And of course, don't forget about the upcoming countdown. If you're just joining in on this video, we are doing a list of the community's top 100 greatest films of all time. That list is going to be due January 20th. If you're interested and you're joining for the first time, I'll leave a link so you can check that out and go over the details and see if you would want to contribute. So yeah, guys, until the next video, take it easy, and I hope you're enjoying the new year.